Hey guys, and welcome to this week's edition of Lessons Learned, the Life Edition podcast. Today we have Deb on with us, and just a reminder that this podcast is to touch on maybe some trigger points that have happened in your life, some mental instabilities that you've kind of been through, that you're going through at the moment, and see if we can kind of help. I think the more we talk about the things that we go through, the more we can help others, and we all go through them. So let's get talking about it. So if you like what you hear, obviously like, subscribe, follow, the normal stuff. All the links will be below. If you want to jump on the podcast, jump in the hot seat like Deb's going to be now, feel free to get in touch. So let's pass it over to Deb to introduce ourselves.
Yeah, no worries. Hi, yeah, I'm Debs. I am a wife, a mother of two, a physiotherapist, and I run a business, Pilates by Physio.
Great, nice interview. I mean, you've got a lovely, I hate to say the word typical, kind of business, family, lovely little life. Talk to me about when you left school. Were you wanting to have kids and a family and settle down? Did you want to go into the business that you're in? Give me a little bit of a brief synopsis of where you wanted to be and where you are now.
From doing work experience, I knew I wanted to be a physio. That was my biggest passion over anything. I kind of thought maybe somewhere down the line might get married. Wasn't that bothered about kids at that stage? Yeah, I went to uni, did my physio degree and everything. Again, maybe had a little bit of entrepreneurial side to me, but wasn't quite sure on the business side. I mean, when I was 13, I was selling t-shirts in school and stuff like that. And I had a little stall, had a little stall in the local shopping centre selling silver jewellery and things. So I always liked the kind of, I don't know, the entrepreneurial thing. But I guess when you do physio, it's very much, you know, you do your degree, you go into the NHS and you progress up through the NHS. My dad actually, when I'd first qualified, came to me and he's like, right, I've got a nice little premises in town for you. You can start up your practice then. And I was like, oh, no, I couldn't possibly, you know. I think when you qualify as a physio, you're still learning a lot. So it took me, gosh, how long was I qualified before? Probably, I think I was qualified for about 15, 17 years before I even thought about going down the business route. And again, that probably happened more as I wanted a bit of work-life balance. I wanted to be in charge of my life once I'd had the kids and stuff like that. Marriage and kids just kind of happened along the way.
It's one of those things you don't necessarily plan, it just happens, doesn't it?
No, yeah. And
now you've got a puppy.
Yes, now we've got a puppy, which, yeah, after 10 years after having the kids, you just don't realize that you throw yourself back into those sleepless nights, early mornings, lack of control of your life because everything revolves around the puppy. But he's cute. Yeah, it is literally like having another. And everybody said that to me. Did I listen to them? It's the same with everything. Like, everybody gives you their life experiences and you're like, can't be that bad. Yeah. And then you do it and you're like, yeah, no, it was. And you tell the next person and they're like, can't be that bad.
Yeah. And then
otherwise we'd never do these things.
Yeah, this is true. There's never a right time, is there?
No.
So in the whole journey of your life, business, personal, everything, has there been any kind of really difficult pinpointing moments that you've gone, that's kind of really changed the way in which I perceive or react to situations now?
Yeah. There's probably been a few. The first, I think, was rejection from uni. Okay. Long story short, I didn't get great advice in my UCAS forms for applying for physio because, you know, it's a really difficult profession to get into. I definitely wasn't, you know, one of the most intelligent in school. Like, I've had to work really hard for everything that I've got. And I didn't get a place when it came to my results. So some might say I'm quite stubborn. And I knew that that's all I wanted to do. I didn't want to do, you know, my teachers were going, you're not really clever enough to be a physio. Why don't you be a podiatrist? Honestly, they were shocking.
So bad.
Yeah, they were trying to
Especially
get
when
me
you're
in.
a child, like you soak all that stuff up, don't you? It really affects
Yeah,
you.
yeah, but I'm quite stubborn, and if somebody tells me I can do something,
Challenge
then
accepted.
yeah, exactly. So I didn't get the grades. I was just off by one subject. And again, they were like, oh, why don't you go and do sports science? Why don't you go and do physiology? And I did ring round and clearing, and I got a few provisional places for those. And the more I was like, I don't want to do that. I just want to do physio. So rang every single institution that did physio in the UK, and they were all fully subscribed. So I was like, it was my art, ironically, you know, the subject that I need least to be a physio. I didn't get my grade in. So I thought, right, I'll go back to college and I'll do chemistry. So I moved up to Belfast, moved out of home, and started doing A-level chemistry. And about 4 weeks into it, this is the days before mobile phones. That shows how long ago. I had a pager, and my mum paged me, and she was like, ring me. How bad is that?
Love that.
She was like, ring me. So I went out to the phone box and rang her, and she was like, a university's just rang. Somebody's dropped out of Freshers Week. This was on a Thursday, and they were like, if you can be here Monday morning, you can get on the course to do physio.
That's great.
So that was it. Packed everything out of Belfast and moved across to England and did that. So I think for me, that was one of the lessons. If you want something hard enough, just pull out all the stops, even if you have to take a detour to get there, if you want it. And you know, I think having gone through that process, I've never taken my qualification for granted. And I do love my job. I feel really, really privileged to be able to do what I do. So I think, yeah, that's one of the things that I tell my kids is if you want something bad enough, just put the work in. And
Isn't it crazy? Like if you look at that journey back in school and actually transfer it into now and your business life, you have to do that all the time with, you know, if you can't get somewhere, you have to kind of pivot and do it in a different direction. And so actually quite interesting when you start looking back at how these things kind of almost shadow exactly what happened when you were younger, but now you understand the reasonings behind everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, you know, that was one of the other pivotal moments, if you like, was COVID, and you know, having your whole business model just literally wiped out from under your feet. And again, just thinking, well, I want and need my business to work. So sitting back and going, just, you know, you just got to keep plugging at it, look at every single angle that you can attack it from. So I think for me, if I hadn't rang round all those universities and literally put my case forward, that they wouldn't have rang me whenever that person dropped out in Freshers Week, you know, and I would have got there. I would have went and I would have done my chemistry, and I would have got in, albeit a longer route. But yeah, I think it's dogged determination sometimes is ultimately what wins the day.
Yeah, 100%. And I suppose it's, again, making sure that you're surrounded by people so that when you're going through these crazy times, there's your mum when you're going through the school situation, or your business, people that work in the business or whatever, when you're going through the business ones, it's just making sure that you've got someone to physically speak to. How do you find, and I think it's obviously a lot more prevalent now. I mean, when I was younger, mental health was never something that was talked about ever. And all of a sudden it's everywhere and everyone's talking about it and everyone's affected by it some way. I always used to be that person saying, I'm super strong, it never affects me. But actually, sometimes times get tough, and that is mental health. It's not you poorly or sick, it's just that real struggle in your head. And I think that's the kind of, it's making sure that you understand what mental health is rather than pigeonholing it into something. How do you find your mental health, or you've been able to control your mental health during all these kind of times?
Yeah, I mean, we as a family, I think we're a family that probably has got a few more struggles with kind of different mental health issues. So it's something that I've probably been exposed to from quite young. And I do struggle myself. I've had periods of depression. COVID was just horrendous.
Yeah.
And, that was probably the time that I felt the worst mentally than I ever have. And I think probably a lot of people can relate to that. But I've had periods where I've had low mood, but I've never had the anxiety in the same way that I did during COVID, and panic attacks and just feeling like I can't cope and just wanting to run away from it all. And so for my kind of coping mechanisms is, for me, exercise is massive up there. And obviously, it's around my job. I teach Pilates, but through physio, exercise has always been the answer to a lot of problems for patients. And I think we're getting better understanding the wider implications of doing exercise. And we're getting better understanding that exercise doesn't necessarily mean an hour of like HIIT sessions or, going down to the gym and with lifting weights. Exercise it can be cleaning your house, getting the hoover out, getting the tunes on, and giving the house a good clean, getting out for a walk,
just doing something rather than sitting.
Absolutely. And for me as well, a lot of that exercise I love doing with other people. So I know a lot of people go to the pub and meet up with their friends, or go to a coffee shop. I love going out for a walk, or, going for a run with my mates.
Do you do outdoor swimming?
I did a bit of dipping in lockdown, yes. And again, from a mental health point of view, it was a load of people from the gym. We used to sit in the D in a big circle because we couldn't meet up any other way. We would literally go and sit in the freezing cold water in the D estuary and just sit and have a chat.
Oh wow! I mean, you're more. I couldn't do it. Put it that way. So
most sane people would have went for a walk together. We were like, you just got that extra little dopamine hit. It was great.
I like it. I do agree though. I think everyone thinks that exercise, you have to go to the gym and work. I love the gym, but when I've had a very anxiety filled year. I suppose that's as easy as I can say it. But now I always think, I can't make it to the gym, I haven't got time. Then I feel guilty because I'm not doing this, that and the other that I need to do. But now I go out my way and I do 45 minutes of swimming every other day, and it doesn't feel like you're exercising, but I shut off. I don't speak to anyone. I'm under the water. I'm getting my exercise in, and just for that tiny minute of mental clarity where you don't have to think about anything else, that's my little go-to. So I think it's just finding the right thing that's right for you, isn't it? Everyone's so different.
Yeah. And that, from a business point of view, that's where we kind of want to capture those people that don't like, the really heavy stuff. We've got loads of clients that will come to us and say, this is the only bit of exercise that I like doing. It's the only bit that I actually come and thoroughly enjoy. Equally, we'll get people that come and try Pilates and think, this isn't for me, and that's fine. But, if we can capture a population that wouldn't do anything else and can really kind of encourage them, our classes, we like to kind of just give little tidbits of. This morning I've posted on my Instagram about the importance of light and getting out for early morning light, and the amount of research that's now behind that, and the fact that actually the cascade of positive effects that just getting outside 15 minutes in the morning before you do anything can have. And it's just finding the little bits that work for you and not putting the pressure on yourself to do everything and achieve everything.
Yeah. I also think an awareness, because I remember, even if I think back now, even when I was hungover and I used to go out and party all the time, I always felt 10 times better, even if I just walked to the shop to go and get a drink, rather than sitting and wallowing in my house for the whole day, or get up and get a shower and then I go and sit on the couch for the rest of the day. But that minute of going and getting a shower was where you started to feel better and whatnot. And it's just being aware of the things, the little tiny things that make such a big difference to just your general routine.
And I think, you know, when I was at my lowest, the thought, you know, basically I stopped exercising. The only exercise I was doing was the classes that I was teaching online. You know, going out for a walk with the kids was just hard because they were moaning. They didn't want to go for a walk. And I didn't have the headspace to try and cajole them into doing it. So I ended up literally just drinking every night and just being in the house. And that took me into that really stark, like downward spiral. And to get out of it, one of the main things I did was not put the pressure on myself to be where it was. And it was just saying to my husband, right, I just need to get out for a 20-minute walk. And then that walk turned into a little bit of a jog, you know, every bit. And that little jog turned into a run, you know, and it just gradually used those little tools to lift my mood a little bit, that would then allow me to do something else then that would lift my mood a little bit more. So
I also think it's being, you say those things, like obviously you're in a family situation there. It's being aware that other people might be feeling like that when you're going, oh, let's go for a walk, and they're like, I'm just not feeling it. And it's not acknowledging the fact that they might be going through a bit of a tough time at the moment and not talking about it. Let's get them out for a walk. And I know they don't want to, but I'm just gonna, let's just try and take 5 minutes and whatever. My partner's great, so even if I'm like, no, I'm not interested, like, just come on, let's go out, let's go on the paddleboard, whatever it is. I'm like, but it's the best thing that you could do, and it's what you need. So I think again, that awareness of other people feeling probably the same way, what you felt in different circumstances as well. Can you share any positive experiences that kind of shaped your outlook of your life today?
Oh,
it's always a difficult one. Everyone remembers those points that kind of changed their life, but something
absolutely
really enjoyed an experience that it's kind of really
I think, I mean, obviously getting my degree was a massive, like, I won't say the profanities to the people that said I wouldn't get it, but that was one. But then a couple of years after I qualified, I took some time out and went traveling.
Nice.
And I initially went with a couple of other physios, and our plan was to go for a year. We're doing Southeast Asia, Australia, New Zealand, South America.
Nice.
And we got to Australia, and they both had boyfriends back in the UK. And they were like, oh, Debs, I think, you know, we're going to cut our trip short. So I was there in Australia going, right, what do I do? Do I just follow them back home, or do I just go alone? And that's what I did. So I ended up being away for longer than a year. And traveled around the rest of Australia. South America,
how was that? I've always wanted to do South America.
It's incredible. I learned a lot about myself, and probably think, God, if my kids ever go, because I literally turned up in Chile, Santiago, no money, I had no accommodation booked, I didn't speak the language, and I was just at the airport going, okay.
Not really the type of place you go as a female on your own. And
but I did, and I just there was a couple of guys on my flight who were from the UK, and I was like, have you got somewhere booked? So I just ended up bunking in with them, and then met somebody else. I met another girl who spoke a little bit of the language, so we did a bit of traveling together. And I think probably the lesson that I learned out of that was, you get by. You know, you'll find a way, you will get by 99% of the time. And South America was absolutely incredible.
I would always recommend to everyone I think it's really difficult, isn't it? Because you go through school and they say you go through school, you go to college, you go to university, you go into your job, you get a family, you have kids, and that's kind of how your life's planned. Whereas actually life doesn't happen like that. I went traveling, I did the same as you, kind of explored, I went into business, and then my family life comes a bit later on. My brother's done the opposite. He's done the kind of stereotypical, what they say is the norm. But I think that the traveling and the experiences that I've learned from traveling are probably the biggest life lessons I've ever had, and got me to where I am today because of them.
Yeah.
Made me stronger, more resilient, kind of, you have to pivot in certain circumstances. So I highly recommend the whole traveling thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Although I always say that to my kids, but I was like, I'll be behind you with my backpack on because I'm not finished traveling.
I just put an Apple tag on them and just follow them around.
Yeah. And yeah, just because I want to go again. That's one of my passions, is I do love traveling. But again, we've been talking about confidence and giving you the confidence to get outside your comfort zone. There was times when I was away that I was genuinely fearful, and I didn't know if I was going to get the next bus in order to get to the next place, to catch the plane, to fly on to somewhere else. And I wasn't sure whether those things were going to happen, but I really had no choice but to make them happen. And everything more or less fitted into place. And you know what? If it didn't, then you just go on to plan B.
Yeah.
And I would say, what's the worst that can happen out there, maybe? Some scary situations. But yeah, luckily none of them came to fruition.
That's good.
But yeah, you've always got a plan B and a plan C. So just go for it. Don't let things hold you back.
Yeah, I agree. Kind of take your opportunities as they are. It's just take them and see what happens. Great believer in that. What would you, if obviously people going through tough times, whether it be mental or don't really know what direction to kind of take in their lives, is there any kind of resources you would recommend for people to use to kind of get them through those times?
I think the best resources are your wider circle, your friends, your family. Obviously there'll be times when you need more professional help and advice, and we're still looking. Pardon?
That's okay. I think
absolutely. And I think we're really blessed now that we've got the internet, and you're only a Google search away from, I've been to counselling, I'm a big fan of self-help, and one of the things that helped me was acupuncture as well, just to kind of help settle my central nervous system. But yeah, I think, reaching out, getting help from wherever you can get it from, but also if it doesn't work down one avenue, don't think that you're a lost cause, because that just wasn't the right thing for you at that time, and try different options, different ways of kind of helping yourself.
Yeah, because as you said at the beginning, what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for another. So, and it's about, if we go back to the whole being aware of the things that make you happy, if you're aware of them, you probably find the right way to answer your problems a bit later down the line as well.
Absolutely. Sometimes it can be difficult to see that, can't it, whenever you're kind of in the depths of, despair, or things aren't working out for you. But again, just like taking baby steps to try and get yourself back to finding what it is that makes you tick.
Yeah, you've got to walk before you can run at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
Well, again, lots of great things that we can take home from today's podcast. So thank you so much for being on. Are there any final tidbits of information or some kind of advice you'd like to give the viewers before we close off the podcast?
Yeah, I think just do it. Do it. Don't let your little negative talk and your little chimp in your shoulder. If you want something, just go for it. You're here once, and it's a short ride, so make the most of it.
This is true. Well, thank you so much, Deb, for coming on. As always, if you like what you see, like, share and follow. If you want to come on the podcast, there'll be a link below, and we'll put a link to all of Deb's contact details, the website, so you can get in touch with her as and when you like. And again, highly recommend the Pilates, so make sure you get on there.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on, Deb.
Thanks.